Yeah. And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 54th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Maddie Allen, with our favorite co-hosts here tonight, ChrispyMan of hexfire.io, Brisology, and Hex Monkey 369, and then Tobiwan Hexobi might be joining us here as well. So hit the like and subscribe button. I have a feeling this is going to be a great show, seeing as how Richard Hart has been tweeting out different ideas for the game theory of how the PulseChain fees will go, and there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. So, how's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Been getting a lot of tweets from Richard Hart lately, so happy.
And now we know for certain it could come out tomorrow or next year. Isn't that great?
Well, I'm going to give you one final warning.
Hey
there,
how's it going? Technical difficulties. Sorry for the delay. I actually thought I was going to be delayed much more. I had plans to go see John Wick 4 tonight on a double date that I totally had forgotten about. And then, and the older in the crowd will appreciate this.
Toby, real quick, you're only coming out of one ear.
Yeah.
I'll fix that. Hang on.
We need to double that audio, like PulseChain.
Double my Toby.
We need the free copy into our other ear.
we need the.
Can we make Toby the new RG3 boomer with the tech? Would that be okay?
Yeah, right. Maybe. I've got the focus right. I've got the Scarlet thing. I've got the Cloud Lifter. I've got the fancy mic. I got all that shit. But for whatever reason, like with my audio settings, I will end up with that issue. So if I'm still in one ear, I don't know how to fix it.
Just unplug the Cloud Lifter and give it a try.
Got it.
And we'll circle back around, but
let's do that. But anyhow, I sneezed and threw my back out. So the movie date got canceled, and now I'm medicated and here with you guys.
You did that just for us, didn't you?
Yeah, right.
Sorry to hear that, man.
All right,
well,
give me a minute.
At least that's better than falling down a set of stairs. No spoiler. Don't spoil it for him.
So, I don't care what order we go through the topics tonight. I know a lot has been happening. Michael Saylor doesn't understand how Bitcoin mining works. I know Brisology has got all the news stories for us probably from the week, but definitely people are going to be tuning in to figure out, what has our experience been on PulseChain Testnet. Is PulseChain launch or Mainnet, is that, maybe we'll have a great debate and find out if we think it's soon. Maybe it's going to be minutes away. Maybe it's weeks away. So I think that there's some different indicators that could make a good argument out of that. And I'm excited to hear. And then I know ChrispyMan might be debuting the all-in indicator tonight again, for people to be able to measure what their TShare years are, or TShare days, which is, I know I looked at mine this week and it blew me away, because that's basically what my rank is going to be for the next 8 or 9 years. So really interesting there, all the developments that people who are analyzing Hex continue to make. Very cool.
I'm back.
Okay. 2 years? Am I in 2 years now?
The audio's
now you're really
worse
quiet now. And only in one ear.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right.
If you check out the amplifier, you probably need to turn up your gain.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, I can turn that up. But if I'm still in one ear, I got the same problem. So I don't know, man.
Try changing your mic out. Cool. So, all right, who wants to start? Brisology, what's been going on in the news these days?
What's
Michael Saylor's problem?
I haven't seen that much from Michael Saylor. other than that his company bought up a bunch more Bitcoin. I've been kind of watching all this AI stuff lately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been a little obsessed, and it seems to be just going faster and faster, and new things are being updated with it all the time. And it looks like it's getting scary how close to like AI assistants we're gonna have. But yeah, I've been kind of busy, so I haven't really been paying too much attention to a lot of stuff today. So
I've been playing around with a little Chat GPT 4 myself. I last night I had it write a chapter that I'm assuming is going to be the next book that Andreas Antonopoulos puts out. So a lot of people are familiar. If you learned Mastering Bitcoin, right? Probably one of the #1 books out there on Bitcoin on the technical side of things. Ivan on Tech has it on his, one of the 5 books that he's showing on his screen or in his background, basically. And then the other book that Andreas wrote is Mastering Ethereum. And so I had ChatGPT write Mastering Hating Booth Babes, a sardonic journey through the blockchain bazaar. And so people who've been around a long time will get the inside joke. Otherwise, that'll seem pretty strange.
I like the sound of that.
And it's really good. I'll probably publish it on my blog.
Babes. Speaking of books, I just got one in the mail today. If you guys don't mind me, I guess shilling it. I bought it on Amazon, but it's called Crypto Investing Practical Handbook.
Nice.
And it's made by I think the crypto graphics guy, and if I remember right, I think it's Crypto Vince. Yeah, Crypto Vince is a co-author. So
those guys rock.
Pretty dope.
Yeah,
so
cool.
It's on Amazon. I just got it today, so I look forward to reading it.
Cool.
Mr. 25th Fret, he says throw it away. Why? Is it not good?
I sent a couple of those to my own boards.
Does it say sexes are safe? Well, I don't know. I haven't read it yet.
Regarding AI, I have I guess it's a concern I'm wondering what the future is going to hold. And I haven't heard this. Maybe other people have said it, but I haven't heard it. We just hear it's going to obsolete some jobs or professions, and that's a societal concern. How much of it is going to take over our daily lives, that kind of stuff. But I had a different kind of wonder, which is, okay, there's libel and slander laws today. Like if I'll just randomly use Matty Allen's example, or maybe I shouldn't. if let's not make it personal. If you were to write a slanderous article about somebody with your own
about Richard Hart,
let's say, then there's legal grounds, like X person wrote this about me, it's false, it caused me this, I'm going to take you to court. But what if you have Chat GPT write it for you? Can you go, hey, I didn't write that, some computer wrote that? Like, is there, I haven't seen any examples of this, but I like thinking about what might happen. I'm wondering if in the future,
I would say
whether with
if you
ill
publish
intention,
that, if you published it in a newspaper, then you're the publisher, and then you could be held responsible. But if you are just a Joe Schmo and you post it somewhere on Facebook, they probably won't be able to do nothing.
But like, what if even the publishing at that point is handled by an AI? Like, I'm kind of wondering if all accountability and responsibility of people, which is already barely present in society, will become even more so. Like, all I said was write an article about the problems with banning booth babes, and then some article that goes really badly damaging deeper gets written and gets published and gets consumed.
I think
Patty Allen held accountable for that.
Yeah, I think so.
This wasn't personal.
Yeah.
I think even if you rely on an AI, you're responsible for the final product. So you're still going to be liable for. I'm not a lawyer, but
yeah, I think the game theory of like the law is that society will hold people accountable, whether they try to rewrite the rules or not. And at the same time, it's a constant negotiation. It's a constant layer zero debate to establish precedents in new areas of technology and everything. And we're seeing this with Bitcoin this week. We're seeing it with we're seeing their layer zero breakdown because their spokesperson Michael Saylor got beat up on Twitter by Eric Wall. Longtime Hex lover and hater there. Eric Wall just basically proved Michael Saylor wrong on Twitter about how Bitcoin mining works. And I thought that was really interesting because Saylor took the bait. Eric, he's been training with us Hexicans who are pretty cutthroat. And, Saylor, he didn't know what he was walking into with dealing with Eric Wall. But, the other thing that's been going on this week has to do with Coinbase and the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Was that, I didn't see that thing about Bitcoin mining. Was it a fine, nuanced point that Saylor got wrong, or was it something more blatant?
I'd say it's kind of in between. He was trying to claim, basically it was through his, the International Bitcoin Mining Association that he had created. And he was saying that because the efficiency of ASICs will improve, that the energy cost or the amount of energy consumed will be able to go down, but still provide a higher level of security. And Eric Wall was like, no, that's stupid. It's based on price, the price that's being expended to secure the network, not based on the amount of electricity. So, people can judge, if that's a super nuanced or pretty basic or in between. Thanks to Hex to the Moon for the $55.55 super chat. Let's go, PulseChain. Love you, Maddie. This will be a market to remember for sure. Absolutely. Thanks for the support. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how it just how it plays out with Bitcoiners trying to make untrue claims, make misleading statements about everything. I imagine that Michael Saylor is really looking bad right now. And if you go to my liked tweets, you'll be able to find where I liked Eric's takedown of Michael Saylor. But yeah, I think that we all have kind of a responsibility to try to understand the basics of the technical side of things as broadcasters. And I think Richard does a really good job of educating people and being right all the time.
Most of what I've learned about all of this was from Richard back in the day, which is kind of funny, but yeah.
The other thing that happened here just in the past day or two is that let me see. So Binance got sued by the CTFs, or the Commodities and Trade. What is it? CTFC? Something. Basically, the U.S. regulator that's in charge of regulating commodities.
Yeah.
And so Binance got sued by them, but they also had the SEC stepping in trying to sue them. And so those are two regulators that aren't playing nice with each other, which some people are going to look at and they're going to say, hey, it's really cool that the government isn't super organized when it comes to regulating crypto. Maybe choke point 2.0 is kind of an exaggeration. It's something that we should stand up against. And it's something where, Tom Emmer and these other people who are in Congress and in the government, they're standing up for crypto, and they're saying, that we need regulatory clarity so that America can be a contender in crypto and not have all of the power drain away to other countries.
Yeah,
what do you guys
crazy.
think about that?
Not only are the regulations unclear, but who the regulators are is unclear. It's like a jurisdictional cluster F. You got you got the Congress arguing with each other about what should be the rules and writing ambiguous laws. Got the SEC, got the CFTC. So it's like who's even in charge, let alone what are they going to make the rules.
Seems like a tug of war for the money grab. Like who's going to get to collect the fines if there are fines to be metered out? The SEC get that, the CTFC get it. There's always follow the money.
And yes, in the short term, it might be helpful that there's no conclusion there, but it's just deferring the inevitable of some framework getting
exactly. Exactly. Well, and even the idea, I don't know enough about the government regulators, but my understanding is, right, this latest lawsuit really claiming that some of these assets are commodities. Why that agency couldn't actually be regulating them, right? So it goes in direct opposition, to the idea that they're securities.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, Tobiwan, you're still coming through only on one ear.
Got it.
But it's my good ear.
Annoy the live broadcast anymore and just bug the chat with the question.
You're a little bit choppy, Crispy.
Yeah, he's kind of freezing up a little
crispy and choppy.
Yeah.
If anybody, Monkey
man.
or ChrispyMan, if you guys want to be so kind as to hang out after the stream, or like to maybe help me troubleshoot this fucking one ear thing, I'd really appreciate it because it's like an ongoing problem apparently, and I can't figure it out.
Sure. Well, usually my right ear is the one that doesn't work. My wife sits on that side most.
Selective hearing, right? I had a topic that's kind of been ping-ponging around my brain for a while because I just feel like I need it explained properly, and then maybe it'll click. But intuitively, it feels like it could be a major thing in the coming days, and it has to do with liquidity providing currently as we have it with HEX.
Great
and
topic.
My understanding is that when the PulseChain launches and we get our copies, you don't want to be in stables because it's unlikely that that's going to have any real value over on PulseChain, or you're going to be taking a significant risk that it won't.
Depends what your goal is.
Yeah.
Because some people value being in stables because they're stable, and some people want to get a free copy. But the free copy of a stable is not the same, of course, as a free copy of something that's a true crypto that isn't, because stables are meant to be pegged at $1, and so they're not going to honor the free copy.
Right. So that's kind of the thinking behind it, is that you're gambling that it's going to get backed over on PulseChain, and then like your USDC is going to be pegged to $1 there as well, and that may or may not happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, to make it even more confusing, it might be that your immediately copied P USDC, it goes to trends to 0, but then Circle actually does decide to support it. They won't support the copy; they'll reissue their own.
Got it.
So
Right.
at some point, you might have to be aware of which USDC you're looking at.
I would point out too, if somebody came in and they bought the top of the recent HEX spike, of the recent volatility, that they almost fell down 50%, which they would have been better sitting in a stable for that short time period, that short time frame. And so I would say it really depends, like what the person's goal is, whether they want to be holding a stable when the fork happens or not. Because I think a lot of people would choose to have maybe some stables on the side because they want to be able to buy a dip if a dip occurs. either in HEX or in PulseChain or PulseX.
Well, there's
yeah, so
like two kind of, there's two kind of issues here. One was like Toby's question was about liquidity providing, and one of the sides of your pairs could be a stable. And then the other issue or question was, is it a good idea to hold stables? And as for the liquidity pairs, I think the suggestion, I think it even came from Richard, was, yeah, although holding Ethereum is a good idea in general, arguably, you don't want that to be the sides of one of your pairs, your liquidity pairs, at the time of the fork, because the ETH, gets diluted by 10,000.
Right. Yeah. So that was that was the other piece of my concern or question, I guess, is that, if you're looking at the HEX USDC pair, which is, anyone that's been around for a long time knows that there's a reason that's the preferred pair. Going into the launch, as we just discussed, with USDC copies may or may not be of any value on the Pulse chain, it would make sense for that liquidity pair to kind of fall away as that launch becomes more imminent. And then you pivot and say, okay, well, maybe it's the HEX ETH pair that makes sense then, but then you're kind of in the same boat, because what's ETH going to be worth on Pulse? It's going to be significantly diluted because of the supply differences between Pulse and Pulse.
Yeah. So
I guess the question is then, if that's the case with automatic market makers and whatnot on the current Uniswap v3 and v2, these just get routed through, like your trades would just get routed through different pairs, and then that ratio would determine your equivalent USDC price as far as your charting and stuff goes. So that was my thing, is like, how much of that speculated withdrawal from those LP pools of USDC and ETH for HEX will impact the price volatility, because of the volatility, if the liquidity is really low, we all know that your volatility spikes like crazy. So, so that's my thing, is like, is the volatility and the volume going to be impacted because of, people withdrawing liquidity because of the aforementioned reasons? So that's kind of my thing I don't quite fully understand.
Are you talking about before the fork or after?
Before the fork. So like, as we approach the fork and people are anticipating, hey, I better get out of stables, or I better get out of this LP token, because, I'm not going to get both. It's not going to have the value I would otherwise. My resources would be better allocated into like HEX or something that I know is going to get a copy that's likely to reach parity. So I want to get out of LP. I don't want to be in an LP token that's HEX USDC or HEX ETH. And if I get out entirely of the LP, then, obviously that begs the question of like, where do you want your ETH allocated? Do you want to like trade that into HEX? Do you want to trade your USDC into HEX? What do you want to do in those regards? But the primary question is like, if people start to withdraw liquidity from the HEX USDC pair and the HEX ETH pair, do you guys see that happening? If you do see it happening, how do you see it impacting volatility?
Increased volatility.
That's the thing. Like, I'm trying to like, if my instinct is right and it's really going to spike volatility and we get these crazy swings, I don't want, and this is part of the reason I've been doing the daily TA. The whole reason is like to give people markers of like where things are likely to go up or down, and then they don't panic. Because if things just start going down and people aren't familiar with like, the volatility, like, we've been around a while, so we're used to the crazy swings. So if people see it break a certain level, they start getting nervous and like, oh God, we hit 12 cents. Are we going down 95% again? I give those levels of support on the way down, so it tempers people's, fear to basically try to dump and buy back lower, or just like hang on to some gains they had from a purchase they had made previously or whatever. And then that way it kind of gives some levels of emotional support as well as like literal technical analysis support. So that's kind of the point of those things. But that's all going to be out the window. All that TA and all those support levels could be potentially out the window temporarily if the volatility goes absolutely ape shit, if people are like, oh my God, we're launching in 48 hours. Like Mainnet's coming in 48 hours. Like, what happens to volatility? What happens to liquidity? And everyone, I think, needs to be kind of braced for that if that's a real thing. So people aren't like, oh my God, we just went down 80%. Oh my God, we just went up 400%. And because, they have to tie it to the volume too, right? Because liquidity is low. A very small volume could make those spikes happen. So I don't know how realistic my fears are around this. So that's why I wanted to kind of bring it to you guys in the chat and see if people could help.
Yeah, didn't we get a mini preview of that in the few weeks leading up to Testnet v3? Like there was liquidity getting pulled out, and it was on the upside. So we kind of, and that actually fueled speculation that the launch was imminent. So yeah, I think you're onto something there, Toby. And it could even get more crazy, later when the rumor becomes not, another testnet version, but mainnet. And that your point is it could also be volatility on the downside. Whereas in the recent one, it was kind of trending cleanly upward.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Like something to remember, I think, is that like the price is not really the price. Like the price is imaginary until you actually like clear the trade.
Right.
So if everybody pulls their liquidity, the amount of liquidity in HEX goes from 10 million to 1 million. The volume increases from whatever, $5 million a day to $20 million a day or something, right? That we're going to be printing a lot of prices every minute that are not super or they're not super real in my opinion. It's like, it's just flying all over the place based on, and that kind of helps to illustrate what it is that we're looking at when we observe a price on a DEX, when we say that volatility is a feature, not a bug.
Right.
And when people are, learning what crypto is all about, is like, there's a reason why there's a time locking mechanism in HEX, and it's, it's to kind of, it's for a number of reasons, of course, but one of them is to help deal with the wild volatility.
Right. Well, and the thing is that was my point about volume, is because you could see a big spike. Like we had that dip down to like 5.2 not long ago. And then we had that spike up to like almost 12 cents. How many trades actually executed at those prices? Like how, so that's the thing. It's like you see it and you're like, oh man, it's like, I wish I could have caught that dip. It's like, depending on, I mean, if you dig into it, maybe 10,000 HEX got sold at that price, or maybe 1 million HEX got bought at that price, or whatever. It's like, it's all relative. So it's like, just because you see a number on a chart, it goes to the argument of market cap being bullshit. It's like, whatever a price is printing at that moment does not mean that that's the value of what you're holding, because it depends on what liquidity is there and, what kind of volumes are going to be following up behind those types of trades. So, and to your point, Maddie, it's like, that's part of the reason that I probably retained as much hair as I have by getting out of trading and into staking, is because you don't have that stress. It's like, I still like my TA. I like it. It gives me a little confidence as far as like, it keeps my fears at bay, because I can see kind of like where things are likely to bounce and where they're likely to hold up, or where we got resistance to bust through. So those things kind of inform my decisions. It's kind of like doing my budget. It's like I'm one of those guys that has a spreadsheet for my personal budget that literally goes out 3 years, right? And that gives me a great deal of confidence in like, what my future holds if I have that in place. If I don't, and I'm just like, I got a good amount of money in the bank and I got these bills and those bills, that's not good for a guy like me. It's like, I like to know quantitatively like where I'm at. So it's like kind of the same thing with how I deal with my dollar cost averaging, is like, I want to make sure like when I'm buying in, part of it is just a frequency that I do. I have certain income that's coming in about every 2 weeks from some real estate stuff. And basically I, when it's available, I just do it, but then there's other times where it's like, I'm looking at the chart and like, okay, what's my strength at this level? Is it likely to come back a little bit? But I don't try to game that too hard. And, and any information I think is always, if you can have an informed decision about pretty much whatever you're doing, the better off you're going to be. And my whole thing is just, I think we have a responsibility to the community, being guys that have been in it for a long time, to keep people calm, right? Like, don't freak out. Like, there is more volatility on the way. Staking is going to be a great way to kind of avoid having to even think about, you don't have a decision to make if you're staked, right? It's off the table. But if you do have some liquid, which a lot of people are advocating, including myself, to keep some liquid ahead of the fork, you can get some shaky hands. Like all of a sudden it went from 2 cents to 12 and then back to 5.
Yeah.
It's like that, or whatever it was, whatever the volatility had been. So it's like that can be heady shit with, and it's all relative. It's like, somebody, turns an investment into $1 million, someone turns investment into 1,000. It's all relative to that person. $1,000 could be life-changing money for someone. $1 million is life-changing money to most people. So, if we kind of understand, the supports and resistances and the reality that the volatility is going to be more severe as we get closer to launch, and the reasons behind it, not that things are falling apart, not that we're necessarily going to moon forever, then that way people can be a little calmer and measured in their choices. Because I've seen people, OGs, selling when I think, like, what are you doing? And then they're invariably getting wrecked because they're allowing emotion as opposed to math dictate their choices, because their ideas they're thinking that that's a top and they can come back and buy it lower. And invariably they end up buying back higher. And then their bags are just getting smaller. So trading is bad. Hello, how many times you got to say it? It's like most people are not going to end up netting positive on those things. So stay chill, know the levels, calm down.
Let me ask you this, Toby. You tell me if this sounds right. So I was thinking a lot about this because we're watching some of the dumpers there, and I'm not trying to get into arguing about whether they're doing the right thing or not the right thing. But it seems to me like somebody comes out and they sell 50 million, right, over a couple of days, which has happened recently, right? They're not getting back in. I mean, there's almost no way for them to do that. Is that kind of what you think?
Well, I mean, from a trader's mentality, it's like, I don't think that they really care as much like we do, because we understand TShares, we understand the long-term delayed gratification functionality of the contract. With them, it's just percentage gains. So even if they buy back in higher, if they see a likelihood that they can make another 20% on that short-term trade, their entries don't matter. They don't care when they're getting in and out as long as it's profitable. So if they're genuinely a trader, then that's something to consider. I think some of these guys, and I don't know about the most recent $50 million guy, but I know a while back when we had some dumpers, those were guys that got in just prior to big payday. Well, they rode all the way to the top, back to the bottom, their stakes came out, and they were sitting on like a 10x or whatever from where they were. Mm-hmm. For most people, it's like, hey, that's a fucking great gain, and they had endured 18, 20 months of nauseating volatility. So it makes sense in those situations where like someone wanted to just get out, or get a good chunk of theirs out, because they're afraid of what it's going to do next.
But it is. So I was going after. I get you on the whole trading, because I know that some people feel that way, right? But what I was getting at is that they're not going to get it back in at that price, because it seems to me that when you go sell like that, you're more, well, not always, but you're kind of like selling. You're the seller, right? And you push the price against yourself. But when you're buying, other people are pushing the price against you too. It just seems to be that way because there's more buyers than sellers. So even if it was almost instantaneous, right? They can't just roll out and back in. There could be some anomalies with price, right? But it just seems like they're not going to get the same amount, and that's kind of what you're saying. Is that they may not care because it's 20%, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, and traders aren't doing their due diligence. They're not understanding that even with a rolling stake, they could come out way ahead and then trying to time the market and get these little 20% bumps here and there because maybe they're missing a 2x as they're chasing these little 20% gains in their trades.
I'll take the other side of this argument, just for illustration purposes. I think that I've changed my thinking on trading, like, because what I've seen going through really my second cycle, now going into this third bull market that I've experienced, what I've seen is that, okay, so people who sell their crypto, let's say they're selling their HEX. So either they're right or they're wrong. Okay. So if they're right that they think the price is going to go down, guess what? They're going to become the person who supports the price when nobody else wants to buy. When HEX hits 1.7 cents and is ready to go to 1.2 or 1.1 or 0.9 cents, those guys step in, right? The guys who were right about selling higher. And then there are the guys who were wrong about, selling, and they're getting left behind. And it's like both of these groups of traders, the ones who are right and the ones who are wrong, I'm over here like, thank you for your service.
Right.
You know, because either they're diluting themselves or they're possibly providing more support later on when it's needed. So it's like, if I'm a long-term person, and look, as a long-term person, I still have short-term needs. You know, I still have, 1 to 5% of my bag liquid. And, so I am looking for, any opportunity to sell when the price runs up more than it seems like it should. And so I think, like, the way I've been looking at the price in the past couple of weeks is like, once it got over 10 cents, I was thinking to myself, well, what was it about getting to 50 cents? Like what was special about being able to get to 50 cents? Because there were a lot of special things that happened, and it was people thinking that there was a 10,000x. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Nobody wanted to sell early. Everybody thought that the 10,000x was going to happen in 2.5 years, but it only took 1.7. So people had tried to stake only 2 years to have their money to front run everybody who time locked for 2.5 years. So people time locked for 2 years, and then the people who were even front running them were getting out. Were the only ones getting out at 1.7 years. But I think you guys might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there was even like sacrificing going on during that time, on the run up to the all-time high. So people had lots of reasons to not sell HEX. And this time around, I think there's a cohort of people who didn't sell the last time. They rode all the way down to the bottom. And now they're going to be the ones who are going to provide the service that the long-term people need. Because think of being somebody who is just learning about HEX, and you want to see that there's still meat on the bone. Well, there are these guys that didn't take profits last cycle. This time they are going to take profits. If they're taking profits at 10 cents, then you're lucky that you don't have to buy it at 25 cents.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because I don't necessarily see what you're doing as the other side of the argument. I think it's just giving more detail to what we're talking about, which is where traders do add value to the overall space. As an individual, they may be hurting themselves, even though they're making gains. They're missing out on gains they could be having. And then also the thing that I always find so fascinating about TA, and as you guys may or may not know, it's like I've got a bachelor's in psychology, so it's like I have I've got interest in those areas of all things, including crypto. And the thing about TA is it's very psychologically driven. People are seeing the same patterns and the same support and resistance levels, so they become self-fulfilling prophecies. So like that 1.7 cent buyer that you're talking about that's going to hold that price up for us, that trader knows that was a local bottom, and they're going to have their limit orders ready right there, right? Or, or maybe front run it. So people, it never quite gets that far, and they want to make sure their orders fill. So those guys are good in that regard for the overall price performance of HEX. But as far as like a interpersonal, not financial advice way to communicate to fellow Hexicans, it's like, you got to understand like long-term holding and is going to be a better way to go, because the likelihood that you're going to sell a top or buy a bottom is very slim. Hindsight's 2020. I mean, I've famously said on this stream and others how I had a large amount of liquid HEX right at the all-time high, and I chose to stake it out for a couple of gaps in my ladders, like 5 and 6, 7 years out, something like that. In hindsight, I'm like, shit, I could have bought back, 20 times as much HEX had I liquidated any of it, but I didn't, so it's like, that's the thing. But it's like, but all that during that period, I mean, for example, it's like, it was 20 million HEX, but because I staked it instead of selling it, I've already earned 7 million HEX the last time I checked.
Wow.
On that in yield. Right? So it's like, and I didn't have to stress, like, what if I bought back in at 30 cents, right? Instead of waiting to the bottom, and then having all that stress to be like, so like, certainly there's a part of me that's like, oh man, I should have cashed out at least some of it at the top, but hindsight's 2020, and that stuff will drive you crazy. So it's
and in your defense, you locked in whatever the share price was at that time.
Yeah.
And also hindsight is cheating, because you can't know that in advance. And if you're trying to do that, that's called market timing or trading. So
right. Well, and the other piece too is like with that particular scenario is like, because I got the 10x on Hedron, I'm not even considering all the yield that I'm making on Hedron during the lifetime of those stakes, and then that reduces sell pressure on any of my HEX, because it's like if I want to liquidate Hedron because I need some cash flow or whatever, or buy more HEX with it, like I tend to do, then that's, thank you, Alex, right?
Yeah, and regarding Maddie's point about trading, boys and girls, I don't think Maddie was advocating trading. I think Maddie was saying, I think everybody got that there's a nice side effect to some of these big players taking it upon themselves to do trading. Like if they're reckless enough, or if they're constructed in a way that says they want to trade, if they're on the buy side, that helps provide a price floor. And I even think there is some, benevolent whales that might play that game, like where their intention is to do exactly that. Hey, I'm going to take some profit and then provide a floor for the good of the whole ecosystem. Right. I think so. So there might be some advanced whale games there, or it just might be a trader trying to profit. But either way, I think, Maddie, what you're saying is it's not all bad in terms of the side effects that it provides for all of us together.
Totally.
Well, it's certainly how the game's played, whether we like it or not, right? I think most of us all lean pretty heavily into staking, right? If you're listening to the show or you're on the show, right, you're thinking that way, generally leaning really heavy. But like Maddie said, we need people who are going to come in and out, on a regular basis. We need people who are going to try to do the swing trade. We need the holders. We need the sellers. I mean, that's what a complete ecosystem looks like. Be pretty quiet if we only had stakers, right?
Yeah, everyone's got their role to play. It's like I hopped into a Twitter Spaces the other day, and it was funny because it's like, well, not funny, but it was a nice thing. I felt good about helping redirect some people, because it's like their energy was kind of complaining about some toxicity they had run into with some certain hexagons and what have you. And, my point was, hey, that's what the mute button's for. That's what the block button's for. It's like kind of like the Mr. Rogers thing of like, look for the helpers, like look for the people that are doing positive things. Think about the things that you can do. Like I always think of that. Oh shoot, what was the movie with the like giant insect aliens? And there's like a GIF of like all the little army people. It's like space something. I can't think of what it's called, but it's like, I'm doing my part, it's like, that's the GIF. It's like, think of it that way. Like in the community, like Maddie's picked his niche of various ways that he's been able to help. Crispy, Hex, Monkey, myself. We've all got strengths that we can play to like kind of move the community forward and keep them focused on like what they ought to be focused on. And, to do to help people stay on the path of least wreckedness, right? Which is, Richard famously said on the HEX conference recently. And if you can find that, whether it's like Westcott, like I don't know if you guys watch Westcott Crypto.
He's been cracking me up, man.
I'm a sucker for a parody, like since the Weird Al Yankovic days. It's like I've always loved it. Obviously with Hexaco, that was kind of my thing.
Yeah,
he's great, and it's like he's doing it, and like he had 500 followers the other day on Twitter. Last I checked, he was over 2,000 followers already. So it's great. It's like he's picking up traction like crazy, doing really good content, having fun with it. It's exciting. And, people like Little Bubble or whoever, could maybe see him. And, people get introduced to HEX ecosystem in so many ways. So it's like, find what you can do to contribute. Yeah. Focus on that. Don't let the other people distract you. And, stay focused on what you can do to make the world a better place.
Hey, catch me up on that. Did Little Bubble do a HEX? Yeah.
He did a Richard Hart thing a while back that was really funny. I can't remember specifically what it was. It might have been about PulseChain or something.
Yeah. I asked him a couple weeks ago to do another one. I'm waiting for that.
He's good, man. He's fun.
He's funny.
Or she. Never know. We've got
the whoever the space person is.
Right. Yeah, who's ever under the helmet?
Whoever's under the helmet. Hey, it might be an AI. Who knows?
ChatGPT does come up with some good lyrics, though. Like, that's been pretty interesting to see how well that they'll do with that.
Totally. I'm not sure which direction to take this. I do. Okay, so
Sorry,
So
we put you off track. Yeah.
To wrap up no, it's totally fine. So to wrap up the liquidity providing discussion, I would predict that there's going to be this weird situation where even maybe now people are earning outsized fees for being a liquidity provider because they're taking on the extra risk of not getting their hex copy on the other side. And so it might be more profitable than normal. And look, I don't know that much about providing liquidity in real life. I played around with it a little bit on one of the Ethereum forks once upon a time, and that was really fun to like actually see how Uniswap v2 is different than Uniswap v3, et cetera, et cetera. But I would point that out, that probably there's more risk doing that these days than normal, and also more reward than normal.
And I suppose if the pair that you were providing didn't have a stable, which will be worthless, and didn't have ETH, which will be diluted, like if you were to provide a hex hedron pair, that'll copy over as is. Apart from any dollar amount, but I'm pretty sure that'll copy over.
Well, if you're a V2 liquidity provider, I don't think it will, because the fixer bot's going to come through and make sure your discount isn't scooped up by anybody.
I forgot about the V2 versus V3 issue there. True.
Yeah, and the V3 is like largely single-sided liquidity, right?
That is what it is.
Yeah, it supports it.
It does support it, although there's quite a bit that's not single-sided, right? Yeah. Hey, on that topic, I know I talked to you about it, Matty. So I've been testing that as well. Because I haven't done LP until recently. So yes, definitely, people should do a lot of research and a lot of learning, and there's a lot of resources right now within the community coming out with very clear, if not instruction, just help, right? And so good to do the research. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and with input from some other key members and larger members of the community, just this whole idea that, I want to stop short of saying it's our mandate that we provide liquidity. I don't mean to say that, but I do think that as people have been in the system for quite a while, who want to see it be successful for a very long period of time, we should be looking ways to support our community in smart ways to help build where we want to go with HEX, with PulseChain. And in part, that means figuring out how we participate in liquidity. So like I said, I'm not exactly a mandate, but one of the things that's really been clear is if we don't have people doing LP, it doesn't support the price. So
sorry, I turned into a 13-year-old boy for a second. That always happens. You said mandate, and then I just had to make a comment.
Oh, okay. I didn't even hear.
Sorry. I
don't know. But it might have been a woman. It might have been a woman date. I don't know.
Could have been a woman date, right? Yeah. But yeah, that goes to the same point. Like everyone's got their way to contribute to moving the community forward, whether it's like helping with like the temperature in the room or keeping everybody kind of calm and not overly emotional during what can be very stressful things like volatility, or providing education or providing great websites like HexFire, or all the different things that we can do to kind of educate people and give them all the tools they need to be, properly prepared for what is a coming. Because we've been there, right? It's like we were in that first jaunt of like screen grabbing our staker at balances over and over and over and checking it 50 times a day, like during that first bull run. It's like, I know that I was going crazy when I was just watching how much the numbers were going up during that first bull run. Now, having been through it, I'm like, there's certain days where I won't even look at the price for maybe almost the entire day. And like literally sometimes the only reason I even look at the price is to update my TA tweets, which is like a case in point in consistency. Like Maddie is a case in point in this. It's like consistency gets so much traction. It's like, I mean, my follower count has gone from like 3,000 to 4,600 or something, you know, since Richard unfollowed me, which is crazy, you know, and it's like, I think a lot of that is just the consistency, people coming back and seeing those tweets. And like, Maddie, if you want to pull up my last, literally, if you search on Twitter, Tobiwan TA, it should pop up all of them. But like, if you look at the most recent one, I can kind of show you on the chart, like how ridiculously like accurate these channels have been playing out, and how right now we are actually at the bottom of a channel with the upside moves on that getting us back to 12 cents. And it could happen pretty quickly, you know, and then the breakout from that actually takes us to 25 cents. So it's pretty interesting to see how quickly those kind of things could become reality, like in, you know, visually. Or I could even share my screen if you want. I've got my charts up. But a little hopium never hurts, right? And a little way, like any way you can dispel fear is always good, in my opinion. Yeah, there it is. So I was kind of a little proud of myself for how, like, if you scroll down to the picture of the chart itself, you can see that wick right down to the green line. That green line is the 55 EMA. And I've been calling that for a while. Also, that green line is a horizontal resistance at 684. So I'm always looking for confluences on things. So it's like, if you have an EMA falling right on a horizontal significant area, then that's indication that, you know, you're likely to kind of test that area again, right? Or it's going to be support or resistance. So lo and behold, you know, as we were breaking out of that upper portion of the channel, which has the blue upper line, and we broke down, it wasn't just gloom and doom and like, God, how far are we going? And then like that white line that you see that's kind of dropping off at an angle, that's the top of the descending wedge or triangle that we've been in for ages. So, you know, some people could be like, oh my God, we're going back down to like, you know, 5 cents or, you know, 4.8. And technically that would be another support level down there. But if you see the vertical orange line right near that most recent red candle, that's the measured move if we break that orange parallel channel. And where does it take us? It takes us right to another horizontal resistance at 5.6. And then that teal line is the 200 EMA. So that's another area to kind of be aware of. And that's why I've got it marked on the chart. Like, if we do break out of this, don't freak out that we're going all the way back down to the white triangle or even breaking into it. That would be significant support. If we did fall down to the top of that white channel, that would be really significant support, because that that triangle's been in play for so long, it kind of gives it more oomph, right? So personally, with that big wick off of the 55 EMA, that green line back into the orange channel, I think we'd be very likely to be going back up to that next green box, which is 845. That also coincides with the midline. You see like a dashed line in the middle of the orange channel. So in some other pictures, or if I could share with you at some point, you can see how not just the parallel channels themselves, but the midline is very significant. So you can even see in the channel above the orange, the blue channel, that midline. Like, look at all the resistance that we got as we tried to break back through that. And then we broke back through it, went to the top off the midline, back up, down to the bottom of the orange channel, broke the orange channel, came to the midline of the orange channel, down to the bottom of the orange channel, wicked below the orange channel to the 0.068 price point and the 55 EMA, and wick back up. So I think with that wick back up, that's a pretty good indication that, like, you know, people like me that had limit orders there got filled, and now we're back into that support area at the bottom of that line. So I think the upside move is pretty obvious if you kind of follow along and start to, you know, speak my language, so to speak, with pattern trading, or pattern analysis rather. You know, 845 is the next level. Then we're going to get back to about 9.7, which is another horizontal support, and also happens to be at the top of the orange channel tomorrow, or for tomorrow's candle. And that would get us back into the blue. And then the blue, where's the midline on the blue? That takes us to 11.4, which is another horizontal. And then top side of the channel, we're up to about probably 12, 13 cents. And then if we break out, the blue line is the measured move of just breaking the top part of the channel. The orange line is the breakout of the whole pattern, which is the orange and blue broader parallel channel. And that's where we're looking at 25 cents. So, you know, that kind of stuff to me is just like, super exciting and gives me a lot of comfort to like have an idea of like where we're going to go and where we're going to hit some resistance on the way up and down. But yeah, so just FYI. Obviously, I'm super geeked out about TA.
I saw the number of people watching just spiked up suddenly, over 300. So sweet. Welcome. If you just came in, hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment, whether you're watching on the replay or live. Tell us what you like.
Yep, and share it out on your socials. Get more people in to check it out. And the more the merrier. This is always a good time.
I enjoy your Tobiwan TA time, and they say technical analysis is astrology for men, but you're a fine astrologist. So keep up the good work.
It's and the thing is too is it's all backward facing indications, right? It's like it's all on past history, so it's like it doesn't tell the future. The thing that I find interesting about it is because everyone's looking at the same patterns and those same levels of resistance and support, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you can see that in the charts. Like it's like bouncing off of like it's obvious, for anyone that looks at these charts. It's like, yeah, it's like we're bouncing off that line over and over and over. And we're being held up by that line over and over and over. And when we break that distance over and over and over. So it's like, to me, it's really fascinating because it's like this little inside scoop into the psychology of the market.
And the thing that kind of wrecks, see what you think, or we can save this for another stream, Maddie, if you have to, but like the thing that wrecks TA, doesn't it, is powerful external forces like a pending mainnet launch or whales doing liquidity removal. Yep. So I always wondered, I don't have an answer, but like how do those events factor into
I think
price charts?
Well, I think because we have such a wealth of information as far as price action on the HEX chart for nearly 3 years now, we have, all of those areas of horizontal support and resistance. So it'll give you an indication, even if we, have some major dumper or major pump from news of the launch or whatever, those areas, the way that those become significant is that people are aware of them. So they're going to set their sell limit order there. It's like people did when we were calling 52 cents as the 10K top, right? Or the 10K move for a 10,000X, right? So there were tons of people, including me temporarily, that were camping out at 52 to 56 cents of like, I'm setting my sell order there because we're going to hit that. And sure as shit, as soon as people think we hit our 10,000X, the price is going to dump. I knew it. I removed my order. But plenty of other people didn't. And then that made that top, right? So that made the top. We kind of did that to ourselves in a way. But, and quite frankly, like I think Richard's tweets and how they've become more, he's really been given a lot of updates and he's like given the warning now about Mainnet being anytime. I think in a way that's him trying to quell the fears of people that think we already had the sell the news event and really limiting the impact of that. So people aren't like, dump. The news happened. They don't trust 2 more weeks. They don't trust any day because they've had, 2 years of being told it's any minute or it's 4 weeks out or whatever. So people are still gambling, right, on it not being any day. But, we all know that, traders get wrecked and holders do the best long term. So I'm almost all in. Like I've got very, very, very little dry powder. I mean, not financial advice, of course. But to me, it's kind of like Maddie was saying with the LP providers. Are they earning a higher yield right now? Potentially, because there's less of them, that are capitalizing on the volume that we have. But they're taking a calculated risk that they're not going to get their copies, right? So it's risk reward. Do you want to risk being on the sidelines waiting on a dip because you think it's not around the corner and miss? Like famously, there, I think it's in BTC. You think I would look this up and just know it like accurately, but I think it's something like 30 days of the last 11 years of Bitcoin. Like if you weren't in Bitcoin those 30 days, you would have missed the vast majority of the moves.
Yep, that's for sure. And I understand now why our viewership spiked, and it wasn't just because people were coming to to rip on Tobiwan, but is
Ow.
because Richard actually retweeted 9 different tweets here. Just it looks like in the past hour or so since we've been streaming, and it looks like they're all related to government overreach. And so that's pretty cool that he's out there bringing awareness to the important issues of freedom and sovereignty and all that stuff that we believe in when it comes to crypto and you know, our rights. So,
did you guys do the letter to Congress thing that he had tweeted a while back? Like you could go and sign. Basically, they have like a pre-written letter for you to send to your representatives in regard to crypto legislation.
Yep.
Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah, I saw it out there. Wicked cool. There's a lot of mobilization going on across the entire industry.
And thanks to Crypto Keeper for the $5 super chat, pointing out that RH's warning tweet that PulseChain could launch anytime. Got over 700,000 views on Twitter.
That's pretty bullish.
And imagine if there were 1 million users, then the network effect is way larger than the 25,000 wallets that sacrificed over $100 for PLS.
Hey, let me walk you through a question about that. You know my friend Sami.
Oh yeah.
I mean your friend.
Right.
And how's it pronounced? Is it not Sami?
I think it's Sami.
Sami.
Yeah.
Sami. Well, anyways, he's always talking about network effects, and and it gets me kind of bullish thinking about that. Anyways, he had put out, a tweet either late yesterday or early this morning. Anyways, just talking about that and posting up a chart about how it's measured in Bitcoin. But let me just lay this out for you, right? Sometimes when we hear this stuff, we don't really internalize it. That Metcalfe's law applies. The studies have been done on crypto and specifically Bitcoin that Metcalfe's theory does apply. It applies. This is real. This is real. And so we don't have to get out the calculator and figure out exactly what the numbers are going to be, but it's going to be really real. And so what does that mean? It means that it's more likely than not that we're going to see these huge ratios of adoption, and that adoption is going to affect price. And I was looking at some studies that have been done on Bitcoin today, most of them circa 2018, 2019, showing just that, proving mathematically that, the network effect is real. And there's no reason, unless somebody has a different reason to tell me, there's no reason to think it doesn't apply to Ethereum and it doesn't apply to HEX.
Totally.
Yeah. If you want to share the screen that I threw up there.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna let people know really quick. I just threw up a survey. I mean, look, we got 320 people watching. YouTube loves it when, we get more people filling out the survey than people who like the stream, than people who are watching all at one time. We get more people than the people who are commenting in the comments section. So love it when you all are participating from home. And so the question tonight is when PulseChain, and we'll get back to that topic as well. That's one of the things on the thumbnail. I want to do a deeper dive into where the testnet is at and what that could mean. So the choices that people are voting for now, just in the last minute, we've had 50, 60 votes, days, weeks, or months. And then I'll read out the answer towards the end of the stream once we've had hundreds of people vote. ChrispyMan, back to you.
I was just going to ask you to share this screen. This is for Toby. This one's for Toby. So
right.
Toby, this is kind of follows your chart. You're looking at price and everything. So Axis and I collaborated a little bit on this to really depict price versus versus the number of holders. And just to give you guys an idea, I mean, look at that parabola, right? Went up many holders in just over a week during this time frame, and we're still at this huge rate even with the downtrend.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty cool, Matty. I mean, because you know, I don't know that it can go much more parabolic than that, but maybe it can. But we're nailing it. I mean, I take full responsibility for all new holders, right? Yeah. So what are we sitting at right now? 329,000 holders.
And that almost implicitly means that over time, the trend is the size of the average holder is smaller, smaller bags, more distribution is the term they use for not just HEX, but cryptos that have similar behavior. So you could argue that's a good thing, like over time, less, I was going to say whales, but that applies to T-share ownership more than liquid. But anybody disagree with my interpretation? That means, more little guys and less big guys over time.
That makes sense.
Well, yeah, you can see it on the dexes, right? We've got many more purchases or buys and sells, right? And so that kind of is part of that too. And so even from February 28th, where we're at 321,000 and change holders. I mean, that's something like 8,000 new holders in about a month, a little bit less than a month.
Cool. Yeah, it's going to get nuts. I mean, like on your, I don't know how far back your charts go, but I'd be curious to see that same chart during the Pulse sacrifice, because that's Pulse sacrifice and then boom, running up to like our all-time high. I'd imagine we had very similar dynamic there.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I can't adjust this one at the moment, but I can go, I'll pull that for you at some point.
Well, and the thing is too, is like you got to figure it's like, yeah, it was a 5 or 6x from like 2 cents to near 12. Awesome, sure, but when we're at that level, you got to realize we're less than a 4.5x away from all-time high. And if you look at what HEX did after the Pulse sacrifice, just with the anticipation of PulseChain being a thing, with so many less people participating, with no new projects, right? Like being announced, no new sub communities that are like getting their project ready to go on Pulse. I mean, to me, it just seems like it is such a powder keg. And that as exciting as it was to watch it at the end of the Pulse sacrifice go from like 10 cents to 50, we're pretty much around the 10-cent region again, more or less. It's like, so do you really think like when Mainnet is announced that we're only going to get a 5x? I mean, to me, it just seems mathematically unlikely unless there's some big players that have got limit orders set to dump it when that announcement comes out at certain price points. But I don't see why there wouldn't be the majority of those, because if we're going to hit that resistance again at like 52 or whatever the all-time high was, I guarantee there's probably already orders sitting there waiting.
Yeah, I mean, you could also see it where it doesn't go above 15 cents.
Oh yeah, totally. Right.
Because you've got, you got people who, I mean, we don't know how many people came in to trade. Right. And we don't know how many people like missed selling last cycle and are just sitting around waiting for, the sell the news event. But I do think that that there's going to be crazy volatility, and you could see a lot of volatility to the upside too if we keep getting updates from Richard, that are, well, I kind of want to hear what you guys think about the updates we've been getting.
I like some, it. I mean,
some variety of opinion here.
I'm happy that he's giving more detail, even though I might not understand all of the detail that he's sharing. It's like, I like that he's being more communicative with the community. And certainly there's plenty of people out there smarter than I am as far as like the actual like nuts and bolts of how the blockchain or the chain is going to work. And I think it's great. Well, I mean, more information, the better, right? Less speculation if you have more information.
What's the game theory of him surprising the market versus not surprising the market?
I mean, I think it's a rebuilding of trust, right? It's like, I think that he understands, whether he likes it or not, that there are people that don't buy it. They don't believe when he says 2 more weeks, because he heard it so many times for so long. So I think that by him doing this, it's kind of like an act of good faith. Like, hey, no, it's like, it's really coming, and I warned you twice, and here's some updates, like step by step, of things that are happening. So I'm trying to rebuild your confidence in what I'm talking about, because, you know, yes, software is hard. Yes, shit happens that delays things that you don't foresee, problems that you don't even know exist yet pop up. But for him to increase the output of information, I think is a really good sign that we really are close, and also to kind of get people back into having faith in what it is that he's saying as far as how close, right?
What do you think, Hex Monkey?
Yeah, pure speculation, but I don't know if Richard cares much about what people think of him in terms of confidence, because he's more of a I'm just playing counterpoint to your idea there, Toby. It's like, he's more of a, like, when it ships, he gets all the glory, regardless of what he typed along the way. So although what you said is perfectly possible, I don't think he's necessarily releasing more information because, oh, I got to beef up my credibility. I think it's more that there's more information to share. Like, maybe it was hardcore development there for a while.
Well, and I mean, to qualify it though, Monkey, it's like, my subtext on that is that Richard is very, very aligned with the hex chart. Richard's not happy with red candles. Richard likes green candles. If people are more confident in what he has to say or the way he's behaving, that's going to help his chart, and that's going to help his bragging rights, right? So I mean, I think that all kind of goes hand in hand there. I don't know that it's necessarily, because his measure of success is like that chart and Pulse being successful and how many people are utilizing it and what that price. Yeah.
So as like a 3D chess move, then that could be like why he's offering more.
Let me back up then, because maybe I want to make sure that we all agree on like what is the information that Richard has been presenting. It seems like his updates are very easy for people to project what they want to hear onto them. And that might be saying more about the people reading the tweets than it is about what he's actually saying. And there may be some advantage, or it might be more tactical in a way for Richard to be putting out things that are maybe ambiguous, or maybe still giving updates and everything along the way. But it seems like we're building up to something, but even I think people who do a lot of analysis, I see like them giving totally different takes on what it means. And that's super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like I want to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, even his tweet of, okay, Testnet V3 is live, has multiple extreme interpretations. Some took that to be Mainnet is also imminent. Actually, back up. The part of that tweet that had the controversy and interpretations was it could be released at any moment without warning.
Yes.
People took that as it's imminent and you won't be warned. But if they find, major issues, it could be 6 months from now and you won't be warned.
Yes.
So, and then there was already arguably a commensurate dump by people who were disappointed that Mainnet didn't follow it like 3 days later.
Yes. So. Yeah. And so to me, that like increases the amount of uncertainty of the timing. Because, for example, some people had to speculate, is it going to be, what are all the features that we're going to see? Are we going to get to test everything on the testnet, or are we days away? Are we weeks away? Are we months away? And there was something I found on Twitter that really, really got me thinking. And I don't know if you saw this, but it was somebody had taken a screenshot of the Combot. Did you see that?
Yep. See it all the time.
Apparently there was a Combot that was identifying where we're at with PulseChain. And do you guys know where that came from? Like which combat was that? Was that
Sure
from
do.
PulseX Telegram?
No idea.
PulseChain. If I'm not mistaken, that was. So that isn't like, what's the right way to say this? I guess it's, I don't want to call it official. It's a collection of understanding that the admins have about the potential issues, right, that have been reported. And I think that originated maybe out of the Pulse planning area. And what it is an attempt to let people know, hey, we know about these things, right? And so you don't need to keep reporting that there aren't limit orders because we know there aren't limit orders or whatever is on the list, that type of thing. So that's where that was coming from. But yeah, it did get pushed around a lot, and it was also accompanied by a pretty good FUD effort, right? It was what appeared to me to be a coordinated FUD attack. Along with that, and why do I say that? Because I'm in the chats as an admin, so I see this stuff, and also on out on Twitter land, different names saying pretty much the same thing over and over again. I'm unhappy with this. These were things that were promised, and they're not there, and blah 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 blah. And nobody's even said they're not there yet because it's still a testnet, and things are being adjusted. And anyways, I just took it as being a little bit of psychological warfare.
Yeah, the subtlety there is, testnet v3 is launched, but you can still deploy new features on v3. There doesn't need to be a v4 for that to be possible. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that was going back to Richard's tweet about it could be imminent and you won't be warned. The other part of it was this is the last testnet version. So that's the only alpha or factual update he gave us is, hey, this is the last testnet. And even then, he's free to change his mind.
but I mean, even though it's not a new version number, there have been updates to the testnet, right? There were some small updates yesterday, day before.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I pointed out on Thursday when I did a breakdown of what was missing from the testnet that may or may not be expected before we go to mainnet as a way to try to predict like how close are we to mainnet. There was there was one thing that Richard had said, and then there were 2 or 3 things that I had seen that were on V2B, testnet V2B, but not on V3. And the thing that wasn't on V3 was the buy and burn button, the limit orders, and
the bridge.
The bridge. And the bridge is something that Richard had specified. Hey, we're going to probably test the bridge before things go.
Well, and then the test version of the ETH network, right? That you would be bridging to and from in the test environment.
Which it was weird that was Wrinkleby, and which instead of go early. But I heard in the last day or two that the Pulse ramp is now being tested, but that it's still missing values in PulseX to like pull through those values. Is it accurate for me to read this combat description to people, or is that seen as not official or somehow? I mean, what do you think, Crispy, as one of the admins?
I can't vouch for it, so I'm not close enough to it to say that this is official. I don't see there's any reason why you couldn't share with people since it is public all over the place.
Did Mainnet update that, or who updated that combat?
I don't recall offhand.
Okay. So
but certainly,
go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to say certainly was done in good faith to try to help people be aware of what's happening.
So so this would not be assumed to have been written by RH, and it sounds like there's evidence that it wasn't, that this is kind of a community guess. And here it says the following issues have been identified. 1, inadequate suggested gas on the site resulting in transactions being pending, stuck, slow, or experiencing other issues. I think we got an update about that at one point. 2, the Explorer is slow. Please refer to the explanation at the top of the Explorer. Maybe it's still indexing. 3, all missing PulseX functions will be released gradually. Doesn't say before or after mainnet, but that is questionable and uncertain. 4, the UI may not display certain numbers correctly due to rounding of the 4th digit from the front. 5, value not displaying correctly due to missing stable, not an issue. 6, farm, LP stakes missing from UI after a transaction. I ran into that, but I didn't have enough experience with farming and stuff to know 100% for sure that I wasn't doing something wrong. But those rewards ended up showing up for me later on. 7, a beacon explorer, calculator, burn, unit converter, gas now, all ETH based units. 8, provider's error. Some wallet connections get a provider's error, which has been fixed. The solution for number 8 was to delete V3 from wallet and reinstall if problem persists. 9, Beacon Explorer database error, JavaScript error. Fixing should be done next week. If you're experiencing any of these problems, talk to your doctor immediately. Wait, no, it says there's no need to report them again. Okay, cool. If you're experiencing gas or transaction issues, use market gas instead of site suggested. Use ! And so this is in the PulseChain Telegram, t.me/PulseChain.com. And use ! V3 gas to find out how to in Pulse or PulseX chat. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about that admin group. It's like I'm really honored to have been a part of it for so long. I'm very not involved as much as I used to be, but it's like those guys really do a lot of heavy lifting to make sure the populace is informed.
You see how many messages came in? Like 20,000 posts. I mean, things went haywire in the last few days, so it's crazy. Yeah, and they have, not all of us are in there all the time. I'm not in there all the time now. Yeah. And so shout out to the people who are. It's too many of them to name, but I mean, there are people that trying to keep order.
Yep.
It's
been
crazy.
Wild. It's like, and the thing is too, is like the level of ignorance in the broader crypto community is astounding, because it's like I popped into the admin chat the other day and there were people that were like, when Richard first tweeted out the RPC settings for V3, his next tweet was the contract address for PulseX. People sacrificed to that address. It wasn't a sacrifice. They sent to that address thinking they were sacrificing. And then they were freaking out in chat, in the Telegram chat. It's like, I've sent $1,500. It's like, can someone help me? It's like, man. It's like, do your research, understand before you click buttons, like what you're doing. It's amazing how broad the spectrum of knowledge is in this community, and people that are aping in to be involved are wrecking themselves before they even start. So it's very important to watch streams like this, K4K Crypto, Access Alive, the website. There's so many resources out there for people, and it's like, when you just do what you can to like spread the word about like good sources of information. And then Maddie, I was going to ask you, it's like, have you done like a live walkthrough of like going to PulseX exchange on V3, going to the LP stuff, like doing any of that? Because it's like, I think that would be super interesting, and I would love to be part of a panel if you did that, because I feel like it would help me personally, as well as like maybe have some people in the chat that would come up with questions like, hey, if I did this and this happened, so we could literally show like live, like you do it and it works, then obviously that's something that they're doing wrong. And because it's like, to be honest, it's like I have not played around on V3 as much as I should have. I've just been busy with other things, and I know that I need to do some catch up, and I feel like something like that would be helpful.
You'll have to do a Toby V3.
Yeah, maybe. Because I would definitely be stumbling through alongside the viewers, so it'd be that could be of use. So
and Toby, when you do that, make sure it's a 24-hour live stream.
Yeah, right. No doubt. I don't know, man. It's like I'm having a hard time sitting here for an hour and a half with you've probably seen some wincing as I shift around with my back spasming, and my fiance, God bless her, brought me an ice pack a few minutes ago. But with that, I'm actually going to have to bounce because I enjoy being here with you guys. I would love to sit for another hour and a half, but it's like my body is just telling me it's time to tap out. So,
well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me as always, man. I'm always excited to come and join the discussions. And I'm going to go to my couch with this ice pack and become a viewer. So I will try not to be too big of a troll in the chat, and we'll be interested in seeing where the rest of the conversation goes. But everybody smash the likes, share it out on your socials. There's already a ton of cool stuff on the stream thus far. I think that's clippable. So I think that's always a good way to get information out. Not everyone wants to sit down for an hour and 25 minutes and watch guys like us rattle on, but there could be like little 2-minute clips here and there that could really give people, the meat and potatoes of what they're after, without the long-winded shit in between that I am prone to. So, but thanks, guys.
Toby,
get it out there on TikTok before they make it illegal.
Toby,
right.
Feel better, but before you go, when documentary?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I had coffee last week with Grant, and that was very enlightening. We don't have anything solid yet. The cool part is that, and let's see how I phrase this, because I don't want it to sound like a setback, because if it's a good thing. We have people that we thought, or streaming services that we thought were kind of off the table, that are now very much interested again because of all the buzz around V3, and because now it's like it's not some guy about a thing they never heard about. Now they see all the kind of the budding virality around it, and they're like, okay, hey, let's talk. So this is very, very good as far as our distribution options, and hopefully we'll have some updates. I'm actually going to probably, after I get off here, I'm probably going to text Pat and see if he's got any new information, because we do like bi-weekly updates. So this Friday, we should be getting an update to all the producers, but I might bug them a little bit ahead of that to see if there's any information we can share yet. But it's getting there. Yeah. It's getting there, and it's getting some good traction. And I think really that like serendipitously, like the timing of this is working out perfectly, because in my mind, I don't think there could be a better scenario than PulseChain launching and kind of like that initial buzz and virality and all that stuff happening. And then on the heels of that comes the movie. And then you get a whole other wave of people that are going to come and want to learn about HEX and learn about Pulse after the movie kind of like keeps that fire going. So I think timing wise, it's going to work out well. It's like, I know that Motley was, there was somebody that was like trying to make a wager with Motley about like the movie coming out before Testnet or before Mainnet. I would say Mainnet's probably going to launch first because I think it's that close. But I don't think that the premiere is going to be that far behind. So hopefully more detail soon as far as like which streaming services we're talking to. But at this point, I can't.
Very cool. And it's like mutual hype. The movie can help hype PulseChain. PulseChain can help hype the movie. So
right, yeah, it's just like it goes fuel, throwing fuel on the fire, right? Throwing fuel on the fire. So I think it's really working out great timing wise. It's like I'm really glad that it's not out already.
Christmas 2023.
Yeah, maybe not that far out, but it's like I think we were saying Q1, Q2. Hey, Q2's not even here yet, right? Or we're kind of just starting Q2 or getting ready to. So
I'm gonna do a HEX revision. Like, how long will my beard be by the time the documentary is out?
It's like, well, it's starting to get warmer where I am, so it's like the beard's going to be going away soon. But we'll see. Maddie needs to start growing a beard. Maybe he'll be like Aubrey Jr. So.
Look, I said I would shave my goatee if USDC ever depegged, so here we are.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, I've got one out there that I'm not real thrilled about, but I think I'm going to be okay. I've got until January 24, but I said if we weren't cumulatively at $1 on both chains for HEX, that I would shave my head and my eyebrows, just so I look full on insane. So that'll be worth tuning in for if God forbid I have to do it, and I'm not a welcher. So. But guys, I'll let you get back at it. I always love being a part of it and tuning in as often as I can. Maddie, I'm excited about your Hexpo coming up in Miami. I got my tickets. I actually wanted to buy a ticket for someone, so I'll get with you in private on that. But
right on.
But yeah, I'm stoked. I'm gonna go to being a viewer. So thanks, guys. Good to see
Thanks.
you.
All right. Bye, Toby. We'll see you later. Take care of your back.
Hey, Maddie, regarding that list of 10 issues that you showed earlier, I think you wanted some feedback on that. My quick feedback is it looks and feels legit to me. That looks like a typical summary of issues found in a release that a lead dev might send to the product manager. That's what it reminded me of. Like I've done similar things in my career, and also the issues in that list, in my opinion, were fairly minor in nature. It wasn't like, oh, the nodes are randomly grinding to a halt. Oh, the performance of the entire network, 20% of transactions aren't going through. These would be catastrophic issues. It was, oh, the rounding's off. There's no stable, so there's no price. This other feature hasn't been deployed yet, stuff like that. So my interpretation of that is positive.
Cool. Very cool. But when?
Yeah, it's not telling us when, because they could.
It's not telling us when.
Because they could find something huge tomorrow. That's the thing.
I haven't changed my prediction. My hope is tomorrow, but I still think September to December timeframe. That's why a Christmas release would be happy for me. I have no basis for that, by the way, Maddie. I told you that last night. I have no basis for that other than everything seems to take me about 3 times longer than I think it should. Wouldn't be surprising that it takes a month and a half, or that the estimates would be a month and a half to get things set. And, like Monkey said, something happens, it's got to be fixed,
Well, I'm going to have to take a hatchet or a sledgehammer to my wireless router if PulseChain Mainnet comes out before time pays me, because I need to lock up my coins. I was thinking of reminding everybody earlier when we were talking about the hex price, how I said that the easiest way for us to get to multi-dollar hex is if everybody sold at 10 cents. That's back when we were working our way up to 10 cents from 5 cents. And that's when, 2 weeks ago, 10 cents seemed so far away. It was like,
right.
It always does in crypto,
but outstanding news when it comes to time pays me, because it looks like we found the auditing firm that we're going to go with. And so things are really moving along there.
I know. New theory. Richard is waiting for time pays me to come out first.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard somewhere, Maddie, that Richard was waiting for time pays me to come out first.
Look, if you guys are joking, I don't care, because I love the idea of God whales and OAs and people using this, because I think it is a way for people to signal to the market. And I've already talked to a number of whales in different coins that they really like the idea of being able to signal to the market that they're not going to sell, and to save themselves from themselves and all that good kind of stuff. And I have so many cool things that I don't want to give away just yet, but I've built up an arsenal of like good news relating to time pays me. And if people, I see somebody asking in the comments, what is that? It's my protocol for you to be able to time lock any token on Ethereum or on PulseChain. And so it'll certainly be an opportunity for people who maybe don't understand the use case for time locking hex, or maybe they had a bad impression of hex early on. Maybe they only like Ethereum. Well, they can go ahead and time lock their Ethereum for any number of years or weeks, and then it'll drip back to them over time, which creates a rewarding experience. And then the cherry on the top, or for some people, the entire reason they'll be using it is to be able to undo a hack. And the way that works is by having a second seed phrase set up that you can fall back to if your primary one gets compromised. And so super excited about this, and I hope, of course, that it'll just like PulseChain, it'll lead a lot of people into HEX itself, because I designed Time Pays Me to not have a token and to not to not be a competitor with HEX. And so I think that's I think it's gonna be really cool to see how that plays out. And there's kind of like a hidden learning opportunity for people, because the fee that is charged by using Time Pays Me is only 0.1%, but it gets charged every time you do a lock. And so basically, the longer you lock, the cheaper the fees are. So it's the same fee whether you lock every week or whether you lock yearly or monthly or whatever time frame you want. And so there's no fee for taking your money out. It's only when you create the lock that there's that 0.1%. And so the idea is that over time people could learn that longer pays better. And then again, that would put them in a situation where they'd be more ready to learn about HEX. Instead of having to take a giant leap into HEX, they could take one small step.
Yep, I think if the word gets out, Time Pays Me is going to be really great because it implicitly improves the tokenomics of Pulse and other coins potentially. But like with HEX, it's a built-in feature of the contract. With Pulse, there's nothing built in there that allows you to lock up your coins. With Time Pays Me, you'll be able to do that. So I think it's pretty powerful. Especially if, like you said, the big holders do it, the ones that we all like obsessively monitor and see what they're up to. Whoa, they locked. That would be something.
And there are some really crazy, cool clues I've seen that some really big crypto influencers might end up educating their audience about Time Pays Me. I am still in kind of a bit of shock and awe at the people who seem to be signaling that they're going to support it. It's like I don't even, I can only assume that they were listening to the HEX conference when I pitched the idea to Richard for a second time. So anyway, that's all very exciting. And then this is a website that Crypto Coffee had mentioned in a recent stream, and I had already been aware of it. Sometimes it's hard for people to remember what the domain is, but it's ispls.live. And as he mentioned, this is a cool dashboard. It's showing you the different online components, I believe, that it's kind of like a website to say, like, is Twitter offline, or like, is Facebook down, or whatever. It's just regularly pinging the website to see if it exists. Yep. And the Mainnet RPC website doesn't exist yet, and we would assume that would be online. Now, just as I'm looking at this, the values that I saw earlier today and yesterday showed that these progress bars for some of these other V3 components were at 93%, 95%. And now I'm seeing that those numbers have all gotten up to 100, except for the Mainnet RPC. So we're seeing in real time that we are getting closer to what you would presume would be the conditions that would be right for mainnet launch. Still, it doesn't tell us if it's days or weeks away, or if there's an unknown, then that could be months. But this is another encouraging sign that we're creeping closer to PulseChain mainnet.
Yes, it is. If those percentages were substantially lower than 100%, might be indication of some stability issues in the network. And can't beat 100%.
That's right. Does ChrispyMan, do you know anything else about this tool?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
Right on. Yeah, so that's more about so I think we've really exhausted the topic pretty well about what we're looking for on mainnet to appear, and whether that's any indication of when PulseChain will launch. I'm looking at the survey here on YouTube, and we launched it about 35 minutes ago. 223 people have voted when PulseChain. 26% said days, 40% said weeks, 34% said months. These surveys always surprise me. Like, I guess it's because I ask questions that I don't know what the audience will say. That's pretty evenly split. Like, we've almost got thirds there. And
thank you for not making years a choice in that poll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Now, I guess another issue that was on the thumbnail was regarding PulseChain send fees. And this is a topic that I picked up on from Richard Hart's tweets just today. And he was giving an example of trying to decide how to price the fees on PulseChain, given that there's a 1.2 million x greater supply of PLS than Ethereum. And he, I think, was looking for people to disagree with him, looking for people to give a diversity of thoughts and opinions on the matter. He even made the comment like, "I'm happy to learn," and look, we are witnessing history. If it's not like super apparent to everybody, like, I'll just say we are witnessing crypto history happening with the development and launch of PulseChain over the past couple of years. And so it's like, it's like if you got to weigh in with Satoshi on something, it's like, yeah, if you were nerdy and in our position, like I jump on every opportunity I can to like weigh in on any PulseChain game theory, whether or not I think I'm right or not. I think it just adds, just trying to add a point of view that's not there yet is helpful. So my first gut reaction, based on what I had learned from our guest 2 or 3 weeks ago, Gamma DevOps had kind of broken down what it takes to be a validator. And I guess to put this in context, Richard's example on Twitter was like, how can we make sure that validators get paid enough, basically? And proposing that maybe there would be a modification in the game theory and the rules of how Ethereum 2.0 would be copied over, and maybe to tweak some of the values there. And so my first reaction was, don't overpay the validators, because I've had a whole thesis on HEX that kind of plays out in Time Pays Me, where I'm like, people are going to get mad gains because they believe in something, because they're volunteering to support. That's what like all of us streamers do by and large, is like we volunteer to support the network of education. And so I wanted to represent that point of view. But then I was talking to a developer friend, not a PulseChain dev. Okay. I'm not going out on that limb. Okay.
I was talking to a dev.
Not a PulseChain dev.
Hours.
Just a crypto dev.
Just say hours.
And they were telling me I'm wrong, that it's just like any old dusty laptop can run a validator. And that the reason for that is because if there's enough value to be a validator, then you end up getting like a competition of people with way better hardware that can not miss their spot to like fill a block in. And this is not, so this is, again, I'm speaking to like the diversity of the understanding, because I think that it's better if people have like many sides of the argument. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't know exactly like what the competition looks like if you get more valuable rewards for being a validator. But so I posted to on Twitter, like to Richard, like, hey, you know, like, yeah, don't make it too valuable, basically. But it looks like Richard went ahead and posted that he is making the decision to make it more rewarding to be a validator. What do you guys think?
It's important, man. It's important. So without all the other fanfare that might go with this, if you're going to be a validator, and if the machine's going to cost you, you know, $1,000 to $2,000, right, for the machine, you have to have some sort of reasonable expectation of a return on investment with it. Yes, I know there's no expectations in what we're doing with Pulse, but thinking about mining in general, because that machine is going to wear out. Even if it isn't doing heavy duty calculations, right? You know, we all have laptops that just die, or you know,
Yes,
desktops that just die. So you have to be able to replace them at the very least, right? Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago, right? Maybe some of us will validate just because we want to support, and that's fine. That's great. That's great. But remember, the strength of the system is made better by having more validators, at least to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, that's my interpretation of that. Is he's trying to find the sweet spot. Like, he doesn't want to make the reward so small that someone on the fence that was considering it might not do it, and he doesn't want to make it so high that, you know, usage costs are too high and defeats the purpose of the network in the first place. He's probably looking for that sweet spot. And it's also very, very Richard of him to ask for feedback.
yes,
Like, because back in the day, he used to have a Telegram chat room where he'd say, "So, what do you guys think I should make the inflation rate? Should it be 5%? Should it be 3%?" And then he came up with 3.69. So there was a time where he was asking, and that's a fine tuning.
Yeah.
That's
That's
not
so cool.
So I took that as him just.
Well, you know, with the way it had been running, I forget what the percentage was, Hex Monkey, but it was very low on the testnet, and so I think the new proposal maybe gets it to like a 4%. That's pretty reasonable for me to think, okay, I'll invest, you know, some equipment that I have, run a validator, and I'm going to DCA for as long as I keep it up and running. It's basically what I'm doing. I'm DCAing in, you know, into Pulse. So, yeah.
And yeah, so I think the other point that was on my mind, and people can give me feedback about whether this is realistic or not, but I was thinking to myself, like, well, if we do a 10,000x or a 1 millionx or a 7 millionx, which are things that Hex and Bitcoin have done, like the latter two being only Bitcoin, you know, I'm thinking if there's a base fee and it's a certain amount, because Richard was giving the example that it costs about 0.001 Ethereum to send a token currently. And we're saying that basically the fees are too high now on Ethereum. If that base fee for being a validator for doing a transaction on PulseChain, if that was low enough, then it would still allow us to do a 10 million X without making the transactions cost more than $1 each. So it's interesting to me that like decisions that are being made now will catch up with us someday when the network is deciding like basically how expensive it's going to be, you know. And I'm thinking personally, I still in the past year have made 15-year stakes. And so I'm thinking, what is the fee going to look like on PulseChain in 15 years? If Ascend costs $1 or if it costs $10, then unstake, like ending a stake and doing all that calculation is not going to be so cheap. And I'm not just saying that that's a bad thing either. I sacrificed for PulseChain, and I, could see myself buying a dip if there was a big dip somewhere along the way. And so, having more expensive transactions causes people to buy more of the primary token, whether it's Ethereum or PulseChain. And so I'm not necessarily saying that there is one right or wrong answer here, but it'll be interesting to see how the balance plays out when it comes to the decisions that Richard makes and that the community make, and then how rewarding it is to be a validator and how much it costs to do a transaction, as we expect that the price of PulseChain might tend upwards over time. And and then is there, in 10 years, are we going to need a new chain to come out? And that wouldn't be such a bad thing necessarily.
Do you remember Richard actually answered this question, right? Didn't he answer it on stream, one of the streams? I thought he answered that we would just make another chain.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the answer, right? Because we're moving to a maybe it'll be multi-chain for sure. Maybe we're a multi-EVM world in the future, right? If that ends up being dominant, then you're going to see a lot more of this, and it may become even more seamless, right? It's not quite seamless today, but I mean, it's pretty easy for me to move between 4 chains in 2 minutes, right? So
copy paste.
Yeah, he said if you have one McDonald's franchise and more customers come in, open up another franchise.
I prefer Dunkin' Donuts, but yeah,
good call.
Just type into Chat GPT 9, like copy paste PulseChain.
Yeah.
Boom, it's done.
I say that for where I am in the Northeast, Tex Monkey, right? I literally, it can throw a rock almost and hit 3 Dunkin' Donuts, but I can only get one McDonald's. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, Matty. You were talking about the trying to guess what the calculations would be of fees, and also the eventual dollar amount of such fees. And there's a lot of mystery there. And it's an odd segue, but I'm going to make it anyway. I think one of the common narratives that isn't necessarily true is that HEX on the Ethereum network goes, plummets and stays that way after PulseChain launch. There might be a dip. It might even be a large one. But I think over time, it's going to be doing a lot of this based on those factors. And there also might be different users on the different chains. Like if you have a large amount of dry powder and the price on the Ethereum chain is fairly low, well, then you might go in, buy it, and stake it. But if you're a small player, you want to buy $100 or $200 worth of HEX, you're going to go to Pulse because the fees are going to be cheaper. I mean, that was actually one of the use cases, and I've seen it in a couple other communities, I guess. Like people literally type in the Telegram, I'd love to buy HEX, but I can't because gas fee would be 20% of what I want to pay. So those people will definitely have the opportunity to buy it on Pulse. But larger bag holders, depending on the US dollar price, you'll have your choice of networks. And the great thing is you don't have to predict this. You get to own it on both, especially if you own or buy HEX pre-fork. You get copies. Lucky you. Whichever way it goes, you win, in my opinion.
Totally. Can't wait to see that play out.
Yeah. I'll be very happy to see transactions at $1 on PulseChain. That means a lot of other things went really, really good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we just pay the validators everything? So that'll be really interesting. And, you know, of course we love giving commentary on this stuff while it's still super fresh. And it's just been today that Richard posted about that. And so we can see that it looks like he's made up his mind too, that he wants to make it valuable for people to be a validator and something more in line with the monetary incentives of Ethereum. Kind of starting off, it sounded like. So I wonder if that gives a clue as to like the starting price of.
I'm not going to try to do that math right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'll just say this. I like what everybody else is saying the starting price will be.
What are they saying?
Mostly. I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about, 3 zeros and a 2, 3 zeros and a 1 5, even some, even 2 zeros and a 5. I can take them all. I like it.
Those are all acceptable.
They're all acceptable. I know. Well, it's going to be volatile as hell. So I mean, it'll be fun to watch and see it come out. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It'll sound like FUD. I don't know if price goes up or price goes down at this point, but I know it's going to be going up and down.
I'm going to share the most recent tweet here on the thumbnail topic. Richard said, team doing projection today is looking at increasing the base reward factor by 1000x to bring it in line with Ethereum as a share of deposit. This will stabilize APY around 3% in PLS with around 40K validators. And he said, compared to Ethereum, PulseChain validator deposit and reward factors increased by 1 millionx since the total supply increase by 1.2 millionx. This results in a base inflation rate that is about 17% less than Ethereum, and still has the PulseChain 25% burn on top. APY as a validator is dependent on a lot of other things such as prices, costs, and user behavior. So it's an estimate. These are very simple parameters to change, very easy to do. So before you have a heart attack that this decision is going to set us back months, I guess that's Richard saying that it's not that complicated to adjust those numbers.
Yep.
Prior to launch.
I agree with that take. He's showing us examples of how that formula plays out pretty much, so that if the number were different, you can kind of make an estimate on what the alternative APY would be. 3%. It's encouraging that he's down to tweaking configurable properties like that in terms of how close we are to mainnet. That's excellent.
It's kind of interesting. If you go back like to 2017, there were people who were mining Bitcoin and paying a premium on the mined coins over the regular coins because they were virgin Bitcoin that didn't have a transaction history. And so I don't know if that relates to like being a validator, if like that's a perk or not, that you have any privacy in being able to sweep like the newly minted coins into a wallet that doesn't have a history. But it's something to just throw out there as well, that and you're getting paid in PLS, which, so despite what the price does, it's you're kind of making a bet on that. And if the price does a 10x or a 10,000x in however many days or years or decades or whatever, then it's still your APY getting paid around 3%, and PLS is still the same if that's your unit of account. Cool. Got that topic covered, it seems. And then at some point, I know ChrispyMan has something he might be able to present to us. Shout out to everybody in the chat. 312 people watching live right now. Hit the like and subscribe button or get out. It's pretty simple. And appreciate you all being here.
You know, while we're waiting for ChrispyMan to bring up whatever he was going to bring up, there was like potentially a misunderstanding of HEX behavior that I keep seeing in various tweets and comments. There's a narrative out there like, okay, there's these whale holders that are doing rolling stakes, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one example, but there's a general idea I want to bring up is, somebody with tens of millions of HEX units stakes for 30 days, that's going to ratchet up the share price. And I'm here to say with almost certainty, no, that's not going to happen, because the ROI for newbies and even advanced people, when you end your stake, the new share price or T-share rate, synonymous in this case, only goes up if that ROI of the stake being ended is the highest ROI ever for anyone. And that ROI is a percentage that you gained. So you would have had to, for example, if you stake 100,000 HEX and you unstake, and by that time it's 300,000, so you've tripled your HEX. If that's the most anybody has ever made as a multiplier of their original principal, that sets the new. So it doesn't matter if somebody.
That's not completely true. Richard misspoke on that once and then had to correct himself, because that's how Richard explained it at one point. Mm-hmm. But if you think about this thought experiment that played out in real life, if what you said is true, then the OA staking for Big Payday would have set the share rate so high that it would never be raised again for years and years and years. And so the way that
it's by actually percentage. So even if it's an OA sized wallet, it wouldn't matter if it's an OA sized wallet or just 1,000 HEX. It matters the percentage. And that's why I'm bringing it up. And we could cover this. We could use numbers and we could look at the code. I mean, because it's all right there.
Yes.
But my understanding is that it's based on ROI percentage in HEX terms, so that the end stake actions that cause a share price increase would be older, longer duration stakes, not the number of HEX that were in your principal. So it doesn't matter if you're a whale or a shrimp.
Yes, totally. And and so it's ensuring that that you can't restake and get more shares.
Correct.
No matter who you are in the system.
Right.
So yeah, and that's one of the deepest points that we get to, I think, in the people's HEX understanding for sure, is how and for that matter, how the early end stake penalty works is super complicated.
Yeah. And there's a chart that beautifully shows that, but the URL that had it is no longer working. It was like Hex Wiki or something had like a beautiful graphic for the end stake penalty calculation, but the URL stopped working. But it's got to be floating around there somewhere. It's not obvious at all.
People who want to do the deep dive, I have both the Layman's Guide by Jeff Kyle and the Lay Person's Guide by Nerd Girl linked on my allmylinks.com/allin.
Yeah, and go to those pages that Maddie just named. He's got a wealth of links and information there. It's a great aggregation site.
Yes. Thank you. ChrispyMan is back.
I am. How are you? You know, these 2-hour streams, 2.5-hour streams, sometimes just can't make it all the way through. Got to take a break. I have an ice pack though. Whew.
So, do you have something to show us today?
What would you like to say, Maddie? I'm just looking.
I don't know. You have any? Have anything you think I would like? I'd be a fan of.
Yes, I think so. I'm not sure if you got a chance to look at it. Let me pull it up. So refine the all-in ranking a little bit.
I looked at it and I love it because it shows me like where I'm going to be for years and years in terms of the ranking.
Yes, sir.
So cool. And it gives me a more precise ranking than StakeRap does.
Let me share this.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this one because this is much more sophisticated measure to look at, even just for your own knowledge, separate from your ranking amongst others. But there's a big difference between having X number of TShares, but they're all for stakes that are expiring next week, and the same number of TShares, but they're all Cuatro Cinco. It's how many days. It's ultimately how many days of daily payout you're receiving. So this is exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I would say this to everybody though, when we start looking at it, try not to be dismayed, and that there's so many large players. So what did we do? So Maddie had come up with an idea, and we had been talking about different ways, of course, for a while to measure one's position staking was. And so what we did is we calculated the remaining days of each stake. And so if there are no remaining days, there's no value, it's 0. And we said, what are the remaining days, and multiply that by the number of TShares. And those, and did that for each stake that's out there. Okay, so that we know exactly how many TShares there are per stake. And then added those up by address and ranked them in rank file, for however many unique addresses there are. And so doing all that, we come up with a overall table that we can look at, and we can see, BAE8 at the top, which is one of our leading staking wallets, is somewhere up at 2.3 billion. And in relation to the OA, just to kind of give you an idea of the volume that the OA holds, the OA holds around 3.4 billion in T-share
3.4 billion T-share days.
Yeah, T-share days.
And then the number of T-shares that the OA has, over 1 million, in between 1 and 2 million. So their T-share days is going to go down by 1 million days every day that they don't add to their stakes. Greg the Duck. Quack, quack.
Quack. Quack, quack, quack. So, right? Yeah. And so that's how you see that. So it gives you kind of a different look at the ranking, right? And so what you can do is you can come in here, and if, let's say you had, and now I happen to just grab the first one here, so I'll clear the filter, right, and clear out BAE8. It kind of resets my little summary. So if you were to do this and you had your, I probably should have grabbed a couple addresses in advance. But let's say you had a ladder and you wanted to put in different addresses. We can also do with it is just put a comma in there for the addresses. We'll throw the filter on this guy, and then what it's going to do is it's going to combine those two addresses and tells us what the overall amount is, and then their overall ranking, where they actually fit within this. So this is really, that combined set of wallets is really an overall ranking of 7. Their percentage of all the T-share days is 1.55%, and above them is a little bit over 40%. So just a nifty little tool to just kind of play around with, seeing how you're set up, and what your staking ladder is. Now, now clearly, I'll just give you my own personal view. Clearly, I am not going to beat the top 3, right? But when you start looking at some of the lower rankings down here, you begin to see what the difference is between you and other ranks ahead of you. And sometimes it's pretty slim. So if you really are into the competition and you want to move up a little bit in the rankings, you can have a chance to do that. You can actually clearly see that. That's pretty cool. The other observation, I haven't done any more statistical analysis on this than we have already by looking at this. But you can clearly see 20% in the top 3. Right, and do the math on that, but a little bit over 20% on the top 3. So the distribution is pretty heavy to the top side. Now I don't have it on this this screen, but I did go back and do some back work on this too. And of course, these are staked. So inherently, if you're large and you're on this list, you're staked probably for multiple years. But you'll also see quite a few of these wallets have not been making, they don't have any activity in the last year, quite a few of them. So those are all the types of things you can kind of start digging into and look at.
Yeah. And is this available yet for people on the hexfire.io pro site?
I do have it up on the pro site. I haven't brought it over to the IO site at this point. There's a little special work just for getting this together so we can get it out here and to talk about it. But we're moving closer to that. So what I'm doing with with that site, the IO site, and I know I talked to you a little bit about it, Maddie, is just trying to feel people out what's most useful to them, to have out there for them. And so I'm always making some changes and adjustments.
Yeah, this is way cool. It's like taking the number of TShares rank, which is still, it's useful, but this weighs it more accurately towards how long your stakes are, which is, so if you have a bunch of longer stakes, your average stake duration is longer. Your ranking will be better than it probably would in the more typical ranking list, like on Staker app. Pretty neat.
Yeah, it definitely will change it, right? Because you'll talk to some people and they're watching their staker ranks, and I think I don't know what's all in V2, of the staker app, but I'm expecting to see that it'll probably incorporate some things like this, if not now, but maybe in the future. But some people report back their league position never changes, or changes very little, and other people move around hundreds at a time, depending on the activity within the system. And that is a reflection of every T-share that doesn't retain the same value per se. It does on a daily basis, of course. But you and I both could be in the same league, and you're getting out tomorrow, and I'm going to be in for another 10 years. So.
Yeah, the extreme example, you could have a 1-day stake of a T-share, and you could have a 15-year stake, which is also one T-share. Clearly, the 15-year single T-share stake is going to be a more advantageous to hold compared to the 1-day. So yeah, this is neat.
Yeah. So fun stuff.
And there's a few people asking where to find this. And you would go to hexfire.io and sign up for the pro version, which has this tool now. It's $20 a month at ChrispyMan's Patreon for his full suite of tools that, that includes this one. And so, yeah, that's where people can access that today.
Yeah, that's where it's set up today at the moment. Yep.
Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so cool because again, it's like, it's giving you a vision of really where you're going to be in the future. This is your ranking over time. And for me, I'm triple digits higher in the all-in stake ranking compared to my staker league ranking, because very, very low triple digits, let's say, because I'm staked longer than average.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw something similar when I did mine.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, this is really cool, and it'll certainly be something that maybe gets people thinking about going beyond just their TShare count and going into their TShare duration times count to really be the accurate indicator of where your position is going to be in the system moving forward. Because your league of whether, you know, what size you are in the system and what percent of the future compound interest you control, you know, we're already seeing, as ChrispyMan has pointed out before, we're already seeing that it's nearly impossible for somebody to come in to the HEX system today and to outright market buy a shark position. There's not enough HEX on the DEX for somebody to do that. And, you know, and so the question is, if HEX continues to become more popular and more scarce, it would be, you know, there may be a day in the future where to become a crab or, you know, or a squid, it becomes unattainable without having gotten into the system early enough.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like we were talking about, I share with everybody, right? It's pretty cool to watch the, well, everybody may not think it's cool to watch TShares. I like to watch TShares. It's kind of like watching paint dry. So I like to watch the numbers and see how they're going up and down, how it affects payout. Obviously, I'm pretty interested in that. So what big event happened this week? Well, over the last week or so, Godwill ended a stake, right? 3.5 billion became liquid. So what happened to TShares? Went down 140,000 TShares.
Wow.
Godwill has not restaked. Because Godwill hasn't restaked, we went all the way up a little bit above 6.4 as our new base payout per T-share. Right, that's the effect. Now, I get this question all the time: when are we going to see 10 million T-shares? When's it going to come down to 10 million? I mean, we've been sitting right now, we're about 10,070,000. Well, obviously, if the Godwill continues to restake, the 140 will be added back on there, and so we'll be up at 10.2 or 10.2 million, and we won't be, you know, we won't get to 10 million anytime soon. But when you look at these kinds of numbers and what the Godwill is doing, you go, oh, well, you know, somebody else might come in and do the same thing. It's going to be really tough. And I think I mentioned this to you last night, Maddie, we were talking, but I did the numbers on it, right? You go look at liquidity in HEX and you see what people are willing to sell, which has been on a 2-year downtrend. So what is available to be purchased is on a 2-year downtrend. And you look at that and you just guess, you know, I think it was 120,000 or 120 million last time I looked. You divide that out by the number of T-shares, you know, the value of what the cost of a T-share is, even at Cuatro Cinco, just to give everybody listening a view of this, you can only create maybe 12,000 T-shares. Right. So we're talking about how does one come in? That's what you said. How do you become a shark? I mean, you would have to empty the decks. You would have, you know, I mean, it's not implausible that over time you could take position. But if you're trying to do it quickly, you would have to empty the decks just to get in and become a shark. So it's nearly probable that no new players, where they have to be very wealthy, are going to come in and become part of the top 10, the top 50, the top 100 of staking.
There is so much. Oh, continue. Yeah.
No, one last thing. And so what that means for all of us is that nobody's getting ahead of us either.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's so much bullishness in ChrispyMan's last 2 minutes. By the way, guys, like as he was going, I was thinking this is a perfect indirect description of TShares are deflationary. That's the whole idea, is when you end stake, your TShares go away, and to get them back, it's more expensive than ever before because the T-share price always goes up in HEX terms. So over time, the number of shares overall in the system goes down, which means if you have a bunch and they're staked out really long, you're going to your percentage of the pie, long stakers, will go up over time as the number of global existing shares goes down. So that's why if you really start internalizing that, you can see that your daily payout over time becomes ridiculously high. And if you throw in what ChrispyMan also added, which was the unavailability of HEX to purchase with stables or ETH or whatever in large quantities in the first place, to even get to where you could then convert them into a large number of shares. And it's like a double whammy of bullishness here, long term, especially if you stake the longer and larger you stake, the more this phenomenon becomes true.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also forget that once you stake, your APY begins to float upwards, which is like a huge deal, right? That's the case. I think a lot of people might look initially, go, oh, I got a lower percentage, whatever. But it does float upwards because of how the system operates with the T-share rate and also the payouts. So we're seeing that. The other thing we're seeing right now is a huge divergence in what I think the estimate is for what the slope will be for T-shares as they come down versus what's really happened. It's like off 45 degrees and how quick. So when you go look at the chart, and maybe it's not 45 degrees, but the angle's pretty sharp. We go look at the chart and we do the trending on it, and you see, it's coming down. I guess it goes this way, or maybe that way. There we go. It's going down. It's going down pretty fast, and it's at a higher rate than we thought it was going to be. And that being said, it's still what's crazy about it too, and I think you guys know this. I say it all the time. It's a boil the frog situation, because even though we're only 60,000, 70,000 away from being down to 10 million, it might take us a year to get there. Right, and so it's just, and somebody had, I think it might have been D-Rosh in the chat here. It just clicks along. T-share rate just clicks along. It just keeps going, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's going to be 30% more expensive to stake.
Awesome, yeah, and I know that Hex Monkey here has to hop off at 10 o'clock. So maybe we're at the point where we can start wrapping up.
Sounds like it.
And maybe go raid somebody. But the final announcement I wanted to make is that Hexpo Miami, we're wrapping up the ticket sales for that. So if you want to go, buy your ticket now. This is your final warning. And I don't mean like RH that it's going to be weeks or months. It's going to be like another week or two of ticket sales at the most. And there's a limited number that are left. I wanted in between 60 to 120 spots to exist, and the lower bound has already been met. So I'm hand making something for people who come. So that's why there's such a hard cap this year. And I don't want to fool around with, shipping deadlines and stuff. So that's why I'm asking everybody to get your ticket now at hexpomiami.com. That's my blog site where I explain what it is that we're doing there. Westcott Crypto is one of the people that's come out publicly and said he's going to be there when he was teasing WenDO on crypto Twitter. And tens of thousands of people saw that he was, that he was helping to promote the event. So that's awesome. If you guys are out there and you're planning to go, let people know and, get excited. You can read on the blog post exactly what's in store. It's going to be May 18th to 20th. And the fundraising for the tickets has a deadline that's much earlier than that in the next week or two. So go ahead and check that out. And then also, I guess if you've been listening this long to the stream, if you really want to meet the Bitcoin royalty, if you want to meet famous people in Bitcoin, then I guess post in the Telegram for Hexpo Miami, and I will see if I think that you can not create fights with those people, and then I can let you know about a private event that's going to be happening that would be a really cool chance to meet the who's who in Bitcoin at a special dinner that they're organizing. I have some inside info about. So cool. With that being said, where can everybody find you guys?
You can find me over at hexfire.io or at the or at the Patreon. Also hexfire.io. On Twitter, hexfire.io is kind of crazy. It sounds pretty good. It's all the same. And YouTube at hexfire.io. Those are all the places you can find me. And keep a look at, keep checking back at the website. Keeps changing. We're updating it. I'm in the process now, implementing a new site.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Hex
You can find me
Monkey?
on Twitter, HexMonkey369, and on the occasional stream like this one that I hop on.
Awesome. Woo-hoo. Thanks for joining us, guys. And
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, that was
I
great.
think,
Thank you guys.
yeah, I think I want to raid somebody. Let me see who's online right now. Normally Randy Hilarski starts, I think, around 10 o'clock Central now.
He's
sick
tonight, though.
Oh, well, if he's under the weather, I see RH Max is streaming. So I'm going to drop a link to his live stream chat. Looks like he's talking about ask him anything of how to become a validator. That's a great topic for this crowd. And as a bonus for the outro here, I think I have a video of me kicking it with a Doge at the last Bitcoin Miami conference. So I will do the outro of that and then the thumbnail. Thanks, everybody. And stake and publish and mine wisely, my friends.
Peace out.
Hello, I would like to interview you for my YouTube channel. Hello, what is your favorite dog coin? I heard that there are many good dog coins. Thank you for inspiring a generation of cryptocurrencies. I can't thank you enough. It's Matty Allen, M-A-T-I, all in. And I brought my DeLorean here.
You a HEX guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
No way.
well, my company, we finally listed HEX. Yeah.
Oh yeah? Tell me more about
Sure.